They're off with Grand Alliance, Mauve Jacket, the slowest to get out of the stalls for the Group 2 Princess of Wales' Stakes, sponsored by the Kingdom of Bahrain and Global Storm. White Cap bustled up early by James Doyle to adopt the front running role, to Isra, the striped cap, and Adair and Will Buick in the all blue. And from a sluggish start, Grand Alliance drops in last of the quartet as they move towards the end of the first quarter mile. And it's the Godolphin pair who are the first half of the field early. Global Storm leading the prohibitively priced favourite and former Derby winner Adair. Isra tracking the Godolphin duo, and Grand Alliance cast a little adrift at this stage. He's 6 or 7 lengths behind the others and just not really picking up the bit as they swing round into the Bunbury Mile and complete the first third of the contest. Global Storm leading them down towards the 7 marker. Tracked by Adair, Isra slipstreaming, and Grand Alliance. And it's single file stuff, and they spurn the running rail, drifting more towards the centre of the tracker, approaching halfway at a fairly for the last furlong. Still Grand Alliance adrift of his 3 rivals as Global Storm leads Adair and Isra, the striped cap, waiting in the wings as they move inside the last 5 furlongs on down to the final half mile of the Group 2 Princess of Wales' Stakes. Global Storm ensuring this has been a good test of the trip. They're still nudging 40 miles an hour. Adair in the all blue, poised, still swinging away in the hands of Will Buick. Isra making his effort now as Adair comes sweeping on by and moves through to take over, coming down inside the final 2.5 furlongs. Adair asked to stretch by Buick. Isra, though, is going with him out on the right. They've quickly dropped Global Storm. There's been nothing at all from Grand Alliance, and Adair is now going to work, and Isra is looking threatening as they race down into the dip, and Isra noses ahead. Adair really having to work here as they climb inside the furlong, and Isra is beginning to assert. Adair leaning left, he can't offer anything else, and he looks leg weary close home, and Isra is powering away, going to be eased close home by Jim Crowley. Isra wins the Princess of Wales' Stakes and turns over Adair. Global Storm in 3rd and Grand Alliance in 4th.
Isra is by a champion, he's out of a champion. He's not a champion, but he's a very good horse, and he's won the Group 2 Princess of Wales' Stakes for the outfit that raced his Simon O'Hara and his Down the Oaks winner Tagruda Shadwell. John Gosden, Jim Crowley teaming up. It's a group race double for Crowley, who took the July Stakes earlier on for Clive Cox. Isra has come to the fore, whilst Adair, I'm afraid, has rather sunk today, and his reputation has taken another hefty hit, probably the biggest hit it's taken in his career to date. The Derby winner and King George winner, Champion Stakes runner-up. On this evidence, he's not the force he was, though firm ground or fast ground may not have been to his liking on these undulations. Isra loomed upside, and in a matter of strides, Adair went from travelling powerfully to not very much, and Isra was left with a Group 2, and a quite valuable one at that.
Yeah, and having been rolled over at a short price last time out over a longer trip, takes advantage of Adair's failure to run to form. I think the point you made about the ground is key. Ground on this track, because when he won the King George and beat Mishriff a couple of seasons back, it was rattling fast that day, but Ascot a very different track to be handling the quick surface on than here at Newmarket.
And as entire horses get older, they become more muscle bound. There's more muscle through the shoulder area, they hit the ground a little bit harder, and they probably feel the firm ground that little bit more. Yeah,
I think that's all true. Whatever the reason, he hasn't run up to his form, has he? And the door has been left ajar for Isra to go on and win. It's therefore quite hard to rate the performance in terms of level of achievement, because you can't really think that the others have given their running, but he has, and it's been good enough to win and win well. I thought when Adair was initially asked, he picked up well, and he looked like he was the horse that was going to take all the beating, to be honest. The race pretty much played out as anticipated. Grand Alliance seemed to be eased off at a relatively early stage. He hits the ground hard. I don't think he's enjoyed the conditions one bit. He was a thinker at the best of times, but he didn't want to do it under these lively conditions today. But the other 3 got on with it. They were led as expected by Global Storm, but once they got to him and picked up the other pair, it initially looked like Adair was going along absolutely fine, Lucky, but It was all then fairly laboured late on, wasn't it?
Winners in these colours of this race in the past. This is one down memory lane for you. Shout them out at home if you can remember. The most recent one that I can find is Bandari, back in 2004, Richard Hills for Mark Johnston. Mutamam, 2001, Richard Hills for Alex Stewart. Bit further back, Wagon Master, 1994, Richard Hills for, again, Alex Stewart. And here's the one that you might all remember. Never won his Group 1. Unforwain, Willie Carson for Dick Hearn back in 1988. Lydia just saying when the race was great. Unforwain. Half brother to Nashwan from one of the great families, and Shadwell, as I say, raced the sire Muharrar, the July Cup winner, champion sprinter, and the Dam Tagruda, the Runaway Oaks and King George winner.
Yeah, he's got a fabulous pedigree, hasn't he? And his biggest win to date is lsrarr. He's taken advantage, obviously, of Adyar not fully performing. And thought last time out going into York that on the back of Newbury he looked as though he was a horse that had further improvement in him and maybe going to be suited by further, but he definitely wasn't suited by further as it went that day, and coming back down in trip today probably a help, as we thought it might be beforehand, but the lack of other horses giving their running has just meant that he just had to turn up and do exactly that. But credit to him, he's won it well.
Solid afternoon then for Jim Crowley, taking 2 of the pattern races here, and he can afford a long leisurely look over his left shoulder at the big screen, and he thinks, yep, that's a Derby winner I've got comfortably beaten. lsrarr it is that has won the Princess of Wales Stakes in the Shadwell Silks.
And Jim Crowley doubles up on the back of Age4, the July Stakes for Clive Cox, and he has done it in the feature race on day 1, the Princess of Wales Stakes. It's lsrarr for T.Jhon Thady Gosden, back 2.5 miles today. Adyar back in second, Global Storm was third, Grand Alliance back in fourth. We're going to pick up the action midway over this 1.5 mile trip, and at this point you're thinking that William Buick's looking very comfortable.
Well, you can't see the other horse, but it looks easy enough for William Buick. His pacemaker's just coming to the end of his tether, having done a good job. Here he takes it up, and Jim Crowley has been off the bridle for half a furlong. His horse is responding, but here maybe Adyar is going to hold on, but the picture quickly changes, and he quickly looks very lumbering and not going anywhere. And lsrarr has just outstayed him and outspeeded him up the hill. I can't think of any excuses for the favourite. And
with lsrarr, as we watched the race a little bit earlier in Mark Your Card, we were kind of looking that he didn't really have that boot at York over 1.6 miles. It looked like he came there to win the race, but he just didn't really have that finishing effort. Today he has. So this drop, it looks obviously the drop back in trip has meant that he's been able to conserve his energy and conserve his turn of foot. Whether that's what has actually beaten Adyar, I don't know. Whether Adyar is, well, whether this is just what he is now. Charlie Appleby seemed to be reasonably confident, more than reasonably confident, that he'd get the job done, but he hasn't done. No, he hasn't, and it's lsrarr for T.Jhon Thady Gosden. And Jim Crowley, a great start to the July Festival for him. Let's join Lydia.
Well, the Princess of Wales Stakes was meant to be a springboard to the King George for Adyar. He's been beaten by lsrarr. A bit of a surprise, his trainer Charlie Appleby is here. What's your immediate reaction to that?
A disappointment. Well, look, even watching the race, I was very happy with the way, position we had. But from the half-mile mark, the way Jim was travelling, I did say that I stood next to somebody. I said, "This horse is a proper 1.25 mile horse." I said, "If it turns in, if they're going to start sprinting, we'll see." Not that we're going to turn it into a sprint, we set that solid fractions, but and then when Williams pulled, we pulled either side of Global Storm there, and Jim's come under the pump before we had. I thought, oh, we'll go and get the job done now. Once he hits the rising ground, they pick up. And Williams said that was at that point that he just emptied on me. He just didn't, I wasn't finishing at all. No abnormalities afterwards. He's having a good, healthy blow, but no more than not excessive or anything like that. So, and I can't use the ground as the excuse. He's got plenty of form on quick ground.
Well, the only thing I was going to say to you was he's an older horse. He's got a lot bigger. Might it be that that ground on these kind of undulations might not be his bag anymore?
Yeah, no. Well, William
Sounds
didn't.
like you
Yeah,
don't think
no,
he is.
no. I mean, William didn't. William said I was happy the way he moved throughout the race on it. As we know, when it comes to the business end, sometimes one of those good excuses we'll always go to with the ground, but
Being very honest.
No, I'm not going to. I can't use that.
Okay.
I'm just more disappointed that he just didn't finish out. Whether we got beat or not, he was paddling up the hill really.
So is it go away, do some tests, try and get to the bottom of what's going on, or what?
Yeah, obviously, yeah. But first and foremost, just make sure everything's all right. I mean, he looks fine after racing. He did say just now, actually had a good healthy blow, and he's come back in sound. That's the main thing. The question on everybody's lips will be saying, well, what happens about the King George? I don't think realistically. I'm not going to say we won't be, unless all of a sudden we see something that was blatantly obvious why we've been beaten today. But on the back of that, you'd have a job to be going into a King George with any confidence.
Particularly, it's looking a quite hot one as well.
Sure.
From what you've seen of him at home, has he still got it at the age of 5?
Yeah, I think we saw that. To be fair, at Newmarket, I know, at the end of the day, it was the same horse there in Global Storm. You could say, well, we probably beat him the same distance, but it's just the way he did it at Newmarket over the Mark Holster there. Once he hit the rising ground, was his most impressive bit, really. And like I say, we went into Ascot very confident that he'd run a big race. We weren't going to go over and say we were going to be good enough to win at that trip, but and I think he ran a solid race. But disappointed, but nothing blatantly obvious as we stand as an excuse.
Charlie, thank you very much for your thoughts.
Pleasure. Up on Lydia. Cheers.
Yeah, bitterly disappointed. No surprise there with Charlie Appleby and Adyar, but very fast time. lsrarr, your winner at 7-2. Jim Crowley, T.Jhon Thady Gosden, Adyar back in second at 1-3. The winner by 4.5 lengths. And just reflecting on that time, 2:27 and 33, 2:27.